Podcast. It's Thursday, May 19th. You might be saying to yourself, well, why are you talking science with astrophysicist Paul Wallace if it's Thursday? Well, we're making some changes around here in our daily schedule. So, sometimes on Thursdays we're going to talk with a very fine astrophysicist. Good morning, Paul. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Science Thursdays doesn't quite have the same ring to it as Science Fridays. It doesn't have quite the same.
Yeah, those of us that have been taught the lingo of National Public Radio middays on Fridays feel like so. Right. And there's no reason Science Friday. I mean, it's not one of those, what are those words called when it starts with the same letter, starts with the same sound?
It has the long I sound. Science Friday. Yeah.
Well, Science Thursday is a thing we like to talk about around here. Hey, and Paul, when we talk about, science with you, it's always a treat because we get to pull ourselves up to the skies. And big news today on black holes. You sent this great little article where if producer Dan were here, he would have this up on the screen. I'll just acknowledge that right off the bat. But producer Dan is dealing with COVID, which, by the way, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not. It probably violated some HEPA rule or something.
Probably.
Dan is, he's got a slight case. And so he can't be on air because we're still not sure how this spreads, right? Like maybe if he's on air, maybe it spreads that way. I'm only teasing. He's just not feeling up to it.
I hope not.
But boy, people are getting this COVID thing again. I feel confident that we've got a handle on it, and all the things we do to treat COVID are strong enough. But do you have worries at all in your world that COVID is back on the rise?
Yeah, a little bit. Starting to see some news reports and so forth. But I don't know of anybody who's gotten it. My wife works at a hospital, a pretty big hospital here in Atlanta, and she hasn't seen any jump up yet.
I just saw. A bunch of people in my life have it more than ever before. I know more people who in the last week have had COVID than any other previous time, and I was like, "What is?" But no one's in the hospital. No one's super sick.
Right.
A bunch of people have gotten it again, like for the second time, or some of them the third time.
Dang.
Yeah.
So they're all vaccinated and all that. So the vaccines aren't working on this new thing.
Yeah, all the people I know are vaccinated. So at least maybe it's just keeping down the effect of it all.
Yeah.
Hey, but we didn't do a requisite check-in on the skies and check-in on the air outside. So
right. It's hot here. It's going to get above 90 here today.
Wow.
I walked into work from my house and it didn't have the chill in the air that we had the last few days. It's going to, but it's very clear. It's super blue sky. How about you up there?
Yeah, we're doing all right. We've got a nice little run here, mid 70s today, talking about some.
Woo. Sounds good.
When I asked Alexa to be careful. When I asked, I thought I had an Alexa down here. And boy, just say her name. I mean, she's like a puppy at the door, just ready to go. She said, tomorrow's forecast, in just that such soothing tones, tomorrow's forecast is sunny and a chance of thunderstorms. So somehow both of those things, and I thought, okay, we live in a non-binary world here. We have sunny and thunderstorms.
More than one thing at a time.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yeah, on one day. Yeah.
All right, well,
let's
talk about.
Did you have both? Did you have both? Did you have sun and storms?
Well, that's today that she's promising this mixed bag of, postmodern pastiche weather. So it will happen. It will happen today if that does indeed become sunny with thunderstorms. Which kind of seems sort of perfect in some ways, right? You get the whole feel.
Down here, that is basic summer weather. In the mornings it's clear. Every afternoon, 5 afternoons out of 7.
Really,
clouds roll in, and we get 20 minutes of rain. Yep.
How do you plan for that? How do you organize your life and go biking or golfing?
Yeah. People who move here are often flummoxed by it. They're like, how can you? Yeah, this is what we get. This is what happens. Afternoons are cloudy and thundery, and mornings are clear like now.
Well, Paul, big news this week on the federal government at the congressional level calling Pentagon officials to come to a hearing and talk about what they know about currently unidentified, they're not calling them flying objects, but UFOs, but unidentified, can't remember the word for it, things that they've seen in the sky, because there's all these little reports that keep coming out, these little short videos that are being shared around of like military pilots seeing things.
Like these aren't just people on YouTube. These are people. These are actual people in planes and stuff.
Yeah, they're not people like us that are just on YouTube, just talking about stuff. No. These are apparently a whole lot of military pilots. No, I shouldn't say that. A whole lot of stories of military pilots seeing things they can't explain. So you haven't paid a whole lot of attention to these when they come rolling through the news zeitgeist, have you? As an astrophysicist, you're uninterested.
Over the course of my time doing this kind of work, I hear about that sort of thing a lot. But this smells a little different. I'm mainly worried about the conspiracy theorists and all this. I'm more about that than what the lights are.
Yeah, I shifted my conspiracy theories yesterday when I heard about this from, the conspiracy theorists are trying to tell us that there's intelligent life that only some of us don't know about, and that it's important, which for me is always the hang up, and I'll share more about that in a minute maybe. But now I've switched my conspiracy theory to what's the government trying to cover up by saying that maybe these unidentified, sky experiences are a real thing. So,
exactly. You're not the kind of person I'm worried about.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. So I know we've chatted about this a little bit before, but because it's in the news, I think some people would like to hear from an astrophysicist and a professor and a birder of your caliber. You don't worry about that there's a whole lot of intelligent life out in the world that we haven't yet seen. That's not fussing with you at all.
No, not really. Do you mean is this something I spend time thinking about? No, not really. I don't. I think much more about birds than I do about intelligent life out there.
Yeah.
No, I don't, because I think that it probably exists. But I'm also hugely skeptical that we're ever going to be in contact with it. I'm not sure that there's another sample in our galaxy. I think we might be the only ones. Have you ever heard of the Fermi paradox? Enrico Fermi, right?
I have heard that phrase, and at different points in my life, I knew what the Fermi paradox meant.
Enrico Fermi was one of the great, truly towering physicists of the 20th century, and he was having this for now fabled lunchtime discussion with some of his peers, and they were talking about extraterrestrial intelligence. And he said he didn't think it's out there. And they said, why not? He said, well, even if there was one civilization that was 1 or 2 million years ahead of us in an evolutionary cosmic sense, that they would have essentially colonized the galaxy by now. And you don't have to be that far ahead of us to have done that. A million years would probably be plenty sufficient. And that's just that far ahead of us in evolutionary time. So his point is, if they're out, where are they? That was the question. And so he believed that it wasn't, that they weren't in our galaxy at least because of that.
Well, they are so advanced, the theory goes, that they hide themselves from us, right?
From us.
Because
that might be wise, actually. Might be for our own good. Yeah.
I mean, that's why they're cloaking themselves with their unidentified flying objects. The thing that's basically been my hang up on it too, and we'll just talk for a minute or two more about UFOs. It's the way I feel about ghosts and talking to the previously departed through mediums and so on. That if that was a thing, UFOs, intelligent life on other planets, other places, the dead being able to come back, we wouldn't be guessing about this still. Like they would make themselves abundantly available. What would be the point Because whatever they've been up to for, if you buy the theory, for 50 plus years that we've known about them in the U.S., since the 1950s, what have they been accomplishing? So it just seems unreasonable to believe it.
So cagey.
Yeah, and what does the government have for cover? Like, you could think that within, I don't know, like some short period of time, I don't know if some alien ship crashed and they put it inside of a hangar in New Mexico. Mm-hmm. You could see yourself saying, well, they're probably covering that up till they figure out what to do. We would have figured out what to do in the last 50 years. It just doesn't seem like we'd be covering it up.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Well,
I'm with you.
These are just not very good aliens. And the ghosts are the same way. I'm listening to this podcast that I'm enjoying so much called Ghost Church, where this podcaster comedian goes to look into American spiritualism that's centered in a with some people in Florida. And I actually really like it. I like the way spiritualists talk, but I just don't buy any of the medium stuff or talking to the dead or them coming. Because you just think, I don't know, there've been so many people who have died. If all people have still access to this plane that we live on, why do you need somebody with a 4-year certificate to be able to get access to that? Like, what kind of system is this? And only some of us get it, and then it's only some people, and it's none of the important ones. I don't know. It just feels like if that were the case,
the smell test.
There would just be a lot more. You wouldn't be guessing about such things. We'd have so many. Well, okay. So we will, at least for today, and we'll wait and see. The mighty people in the comments, and I'm very interested in people's comments on this. Feel free to send it, because I had like 7 different people message me in the last day or two saying, hey, did you see this stuff about UFOs? For some reason, they think that we might be interested in such things. So, all right, there we are.
Don't get me wrong. I'm interested in it. I just don't haven't thought about it that much. I think it's a fascinating question, but I'm just skeptical. I'm just really skeptical of any claims, things like that.
Yeah. And you're not skeptical like a good scientist is skeptical. You're saying you're skeptical like, this just doesn't really even rise to the level of.
Right. Nothing that I've seen in my life makes me think, Maybe there's something to it. I've never seen anything like that that makes me really question my innate skepticism about it.
Huh. I'm just wanting to make sure we're not hearing an echo. I see some people are saying that they're hearing an echo. Are people hearing an echo from you? I sure hope that's not the case.
I'm not getting an echo myself.
Okay. Well, Paul, tell us a little bit here about your this article about finding black holes, because black holes is the other more interesting part of our conversation.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see if I've got to change a setting here. So you have at it, my friend.
Yeah. So a few years back, I don't know if you remember. Again, if Dan was around, we could put a nice picture up. A few years back, we got our first actual image of a black hole. And this black hole was, I don't know, a couple hundred million light years away. And granted, it's a big black hole. It's one of the larger ones. 5 billion times the mass of the sun, or something like that. But it turns out that almost every galaxy we believe, whether it's a spiral galaxy or sort of just an elliptical galaxy or whatever, most major galaxies, if not all of them, have black holes at their centers. And what has recently been done is a photograph of our own black hole at the center of the Milky Way galaxy was taken. It's a nice image too. You can see the shadow, sort of the spot where the actual black hole is, and you can see the radiation around it. So it's a lovely picture, and it's just been published just this last week. And we've been trying to get this image for a long time. It took quite a long time to process it. The data was actually taken about 4 or 5 years ago, but it took a long time to process the data. But that's the story. That's the basic story. We have a nice image of the black hole center of the Milky Way galaxy, about 4 million times the mass of the sun, something like that.
So how do they? When I saw that image, and people should Google it, how do they get a picture like that and know that's a black hole? This is one of the things you've helped me to think through. Is sometimes astrophysicists are talking about things like the data that they get back, and then other times they talk about pictures and images. How does that work? How do they get images of this stuff?
Two words for the same thing. That's all it really means. The data that we received was converted into an image, basically. Well, there's several reasons why we think it's a black hole. We've known there's a black hole in our galaxy for decades. That was not in question. So it's not like we took this picture and discovered through this picture that there was a black hole. We've known there was a black hole in our galaxy. We just never had a good image of it until now. So it's not, the news is not that we have a black hole in our galaxy, that we have a picture of it.
Oh, I see. And how do they collect that picture? What this is not the new technology that's up. This isn't the web, right? This is a different one.
Yeah, this is a collection of maybe eight different radio telescopes around the world. Which basically pointed at black hole for I don't know how many hours or days in a row. They did. Basically, it's like a long exposure picture. And they did it from all over the Earth, and so it was constant exposure to it because these radio telescopes are all around the Earth. That's how we did it. It's the name of the network of telescopes. Basically, it's about eight radio telescopes.
Yeah, I just want to chat to the people here. Yes, we know there's an echo, friends. Thank you for your comments and for pointing that out. I'm trying to fix it, and I don't know why it is happening. It hasn't happened before, and it's happening now, and I don't know why. So Paul's going to keep talking. I'm going to try to fix it. What we will do, because we also record this on a separate audio piece, we will repost this whole thing with corrected audio at some point, but we will get on it. So John and Steve and Dave and Betsy, thank you so much for helping on that. And Paul, I'm going to be not unattentive to you. I am attentive to you, but I'm going to be trying to see where this particular setting is. That's causing this problem. All right, so remind us the importance of the black holes, would you?
Well, the black holes are important just because unlike the aliens that are real and completely mind-bending, they are basically regions of space where gravity is so powerful, gravity is so strong that not even light can escape it. There's a thing called the escape velocity. The Earth has an escape velocity. So if we forget about the drag effects of the atmosphere, if we go outside and we take a ball and we throw it up, it'll come back down. If we throw it harder, faster, it'll also come back down, but it'll take longer. The harder we throw it, the longer it takes to come back down. And there is a speed about 11 point, maybe I'll say round it down to 6-7 miles per second. If we throw a ball at 7 miles per second upwards, it will never come back. It will have achieved what we call escape velocity.
It got far enough away from the Earth.
It got far enough away with the Earth and was going fast enough to where it never actually returned. Because as you get far from the Earth, gravity gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And so the pull is less and less. If you started off with enough speed, it will escape the Earth's gravitational pull altogether. And so that speed of 7 miles per second is known as the escape velocity of the Earth. It's less on the moon. Different planets have different escape velocities based on their mass and their size. So suppose we could make the Earth smaller, make it, half the size. Same mass, but we make it crush it to half the size. The escape velocity will go up. We'll have to throw something harder because the gravitational field will be stronger.
So why is that? Why if the mass is the same, but the size is different, why does the gravitational effect increase?
Because we are on average closer to, if you imagine the Earth made up of a bunch of little particles, each pulling at the ball. If you think of the Earth as a collection of a bunch of little point particles, all pulling at the ball, when you crush the Earth smaller, you are on average closer to every one of those attracting particles, right? The ball is closer to the mass of the Earth on average. And so the gravitational force increases as the distance decreases. So as you make the Earth smaller and smaller and smaller, it becomes harder and harder and harder to escape its gravity.
Okay.
So if you made the Earth about the size of a grape,
okay,
if you took all the junk in the Earth and smashed it to about the size of a grape, then the escape velocity would be faster than the speed of light.
A black hole. Nothing's getting out of there. It would be a black hole.
That's correct.
So this black hole that there's this picture of, but again, it's a rendering, right? It's not a photo, or it's not a actually captured image.
Oh, it's an image. It's not visible light. It's not the same. Our eyes can only see a very, very super narrow range of wavelength, but there's a lot of light outside of that range that we can't see.
Okay.
It's a perfectly real image of light, not light that our eyes happen to be sensitive to, but it's an actual real image of made with, light.
Okay.
Not light that we can see.
I mean, it's just, there's something in my mind that gets bent when you think somehow they've taken an image, some version of a photo of a black hole, like of a thing of which light can't get out of, right? And I know that, you see sort of around it, and at least in the image that I saw, you see something around it, and you see a dark center. So can you say a little bit more about gravity itself? Because in my mind, and as I've been thinking in my adulthood about gravity and all, it's been very helpful to separate it from magnetism, where if you put a magnet by a little piece of metal and you get those just close enough, it pulls it.
Yep.
But that's not what gravity is, right?
Nope.
Gravity's not pulling. So when we say, if you throw a ball up or shoot a rocket or something up in the air, and the pull of the Earth, it's not pull like you would think of a physical rope pulling or something, or a cable, or of magnetism, magnetic attraction pulling it. How does one think about pulling in the gravitational sense?
Well, it is pulled. It in that sense, it's a force like any other force. It's a pull. Now the origin of it is different, but the effect is the same as the paperclip you're talking about, and it's always attractive, right? There's no that we know of. There's no negative gravity that pushes objects apart. Gravity, as we know it, is always attractive. But yeah, it is a perfectly real force, just like magnetism or all the rest. So again, the mechanism's different, but the effect is the same.
When people are flying in a spacecraft, I mean the real people flying in a spacecraft, not the pretend aliens are flying in the spacecraft. When people are flying in a spacecraft and they get closer to the Earth, right, because they're in the atmosphere and they're orbiting, does the aircraft feel a pull as it gets closer, or is it just so gradual that you don't really?
So are you talking about like people in the space station, or somebody in the space shuttle re-entering the atmosphere?
Yeah. Well, you shoot up in a rocket or something, you kind of get out of it. Now you're up there floating. As you get closer to the Earth, and you're now going to speed up as you're, if the
whoa. Now if it's a powered vehicle like the space shuttle, then you'll start to feel your own gravity, because it's providing some lift. It's providing some lift against the fall, right? Against its natural tendency to fall. But if you're in a if you're in a one of those little capsules, that's landing out in the ocean, like back in the Apollo era, until you put the parachutes up, until you do that, you're floating inside that thing.
And once you get closer to the Earth and you start to feel the pull, do they feel a pull like a magnetic pull?
Nope.
Does it feel anything like
because
that?
what's happening is until you put on the parachutes, the capsule is falling and speeding up, right, as it falls faster and faster towards the ocean. But you are too. So you're inside, you're both falling and you're both accelerating at the same rate. So relative to the capsule, you're not moving at all. So you're floating inside the capsule until you put the parachutes on, the capsule slows down and pushes up against your feet.
I see.
See what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. Or against your butt. You'd probably be sitting down at that point, but you know what I'm saying.
And probably strapped in.
Yeah, hopefully. Because that would be quite a jolt when those parachutes first open up.
When they were first putting the trips up into our atmosphere together, launching people, NASA and all this, even before we got all the way to the moon, how much worry was there about that kind of thing? Like, did we feel like we knew gravity well enough to manage all that, or was it look, we don't know what's going to happen, could rip this thing apart? Like, what?
No, we had that. That I don't think there was ever an issue. Gravity was, first sort of cracked in some way by Mr. Newton, and then and it was he did a pretty good job. He was pretty thorough, but a few decimal places in, things looked a little fishy, and there were a couple places where his predictions didn't quite work out, and that's what Einstein basically ended up patching up in 1915. So basically, since 1915, we've had a really thorough, almost over 100 years ago, really thorough understanding of gravity.
And is gravity one of those constants? Like, if you get near another planet with somehow knowing what the mass is and all, you've got it nailed. It's just going to be the same wherever you are. It's a consistent.
Yeah, as far as we know, the gravity is the same pretty much everywhere. As far as we can tell, everywhere in the universe. And that's actually one of the reasons we knew there was a black hole, getting back to that, in the center of the galaxy, is because we can't see the black hole itself, right? It's black. Light can't leave it.
Right.
But what happens is the gravity is so strong that gas and dust and anything in the environment of the black hole is constantly going to be being pulled into it and orbiting around it. And when stuff gets close to a black hole, usually it gets so hot that it emits light. And that's what we're seeing in the picture. We're seeing the environment around the black hole.
Yeah.
The stuff that's heated up, the gas and dust around it. And we can actually over time, we can see stars very close to it, orbiting it. And we can, using what we know about gravity, Einstein's theory of gravity, we can see that these stars are, number one, very close, but also must be orbiting something with an enormous mass. So it was really Einstein's general relativity, this 1915 theory of gravity, that we use to let us know that there's a black hole at the center of the galaxy, because of the speeds at which these stars are orbiting this unseen object are such that it must be a black hole.
And why doesn't that black hole just suck everything in that's around it? Like, why is there stardust that's sort of spinning around it?
Oh, it does. It's just quite slow, and there's a lot of stuff around it. This thing is still quite big. This black hole is probably about the size of Mercury's orbit, from side to side. Sort of think about the size of Mercury's orbit. That's about the radius of Mercury's orbit is about the same as the radius of the black hole. So it's pretty big. It's pulling in a lot of material all the time. So that's how we know it's there.
I just love that for you, there's a scale in your brain that's like, hey, just think about like the size of Mercury's orbit, and that's probably the size. I'm like, I have literally no concept of the size of Mercury's orbit, but I nodded my head and said, oh yeah, okay, yeah, so about the size of Mercury's orbit.
In other words, it's pretty big by our standards.
So why is that slow? I guess I was thinking that
the
a black
rate at which
hole...
material actually falls into it is slow, but because it has so much what we call angular momentum, it's not going straight into it. Like it doesn't. There's a lot of rotation happening at the center of the galaxy, a lot of it, and so this material is not just falling straight into it. It's actually spiraling in very slowly into it. So the rate at which stuff's going into it is not that high, but it's high enough to to show up and to heat the material up and stuff like that, enough for us to see it.
Wow, that is
you wouldn't want to be you wouldn't want to be there. It's not a fun. It wouldn't be a very pleasant environment for us.
But black holes are kind of cool, aren't they? I mean, when you really start. Yeah. I mean, there's something about, and I guess it's because in my mind they confuse with dark matter, which feels like this thing we don't really fully understand, but is some force that's dominant in the universe.
Yeah,
that's not a black hole, though. We've got a pretty good idea of what a black hole is. So dark matter as a sort of cover language for we don't really know what's going on over there.
Right. Yeah, a black hole is normal matter just crushed to a very high density. That's all. It belongs to when we talk about the mass energy of the universe. Black holes are not. I mean, they're accounted for in the regular matter category.
So George asked this question that I was trying to frame up in my own head. George says, "Where does all the stellar debris the black hole consumes? Where does it go? Where does all that?" Like what's in that black hole? What's the best guess?
We don't. It's just it gets crushed into essentially a point. You can't stop gravity. We don't know where it goes. We can't see, and there's this limit. I mean, we can't see if you had think of it this way: if you had a black hole without any junk around it, it would just be a big black thing. It would just be a region of space that's just black. And the boundary is not a hard boundary, right? It's just this region is dark. And so we are blocked from seeing what's inside. It's forever kept from us. We cannot access.
So in that sense, it is hidden. I mean, there is a hidden sense, but not because we don't understand or have a good guess at what the forces are that have made it happen. But what's going on? Because without light... So does it not because light is one thing, right? Light waves, as we talk about them, that our eyes see and so on, are one frequency. But radiation is another form of light. Is that right?
Yeah, well, it depends. When you say radiation, sometimes you mean light, sometimes you mean... typically, though, I think that means light, just like radio waves and X-rays, and gamma rays. Those are all the same thing as light. Yeah. We see just longer or shorter wavelengths than we can see.
Right. But it doesn't even, there's not even a way to detect those things. No,
because it all travels at the speed of light, and none of it can get out. None of it. Nothing, no information can get out outside of that sphere. Whatever goes in, it's essentially cut off from the universe forever, and we can have no knowledge of it once it passes that boundary known as the event horizon.
I feel like I was getting it for a minute, and now that last comment opened up a whole new dark closet.
Light, it's a one-way trip.
It's a one-way trip.
Yeah. Light can go in, stuff can go in, matter can go in, but nothing can come out. Not only that, but once it passes the surface of that sphere, that event horizon, it is lost to our knowledge. Forever.
So gravity has an effect on light waves. I guess this is where my what is a light wave that gravity can have an effect on? What
if you think of gravity in the sense of Newton,
okay,
then an object must have mass to be affected by gravity.
Right. Okay.
Right. But if you think about it from Einstein's point of view, the theory of relativity, we don't think of mass in the same way. We don't think we don't think of gravity in the same way. Gravity affects light.
Huh.
And in fact,
how does it affect light in this Einsteinian way? If it doesn't have to have mass, what is being affected?
What is being affected is the space around the object. So think of it this way.
Okay, are we now in master's degree level here? Or are you teaching?
No.
At the college level?
This is astronomy 101. Okay, it's a simple image here.
Gosh,
now there are limits. There are limits to the analogy, but hang with me.
Okay.
Imagine you've got a great big trampoline.
Okay,
you got that, right? That's not too advanced.
I have one in my backyard.
Now, do you have a bowling ball?
No, but I have a heavy cylinder ball sort of thing.
Okay, but you've seen a bowling ball. You know what a bowling ball is.
I have held a bowling ball. I have thrown a bowling ball.
Okay, good.
I have polished a bowling ball.
Now
I have stuck my fingers inside of a bowling ball that other people stuck their fingers in and didn't think a thing of it. It's really quite a disgust. Like, you'll think about when you go bowling, you'll think about your shoes. Like, oh my gosh, I'm putting on these shoes someone else wore, and you literally have a pair of socks on when you're bowling.
That's true.
And you're freaking out. At least people like me freaking out. But then you go grab that bowling ball just sitting over on the rack over there.
Okay, so
stick your hand right in
it. A bowling ball. You got a bowling ball, and you got a ping pong ball. You've also know what a ping pong ball is. Now, imagine taking that ping pong ball, and rolling it across the big trampoline from one side to the other. It goes in a straight line, right?
Yeah.
Just goes in a straight line. That's like a photon. That's like a light particle. Okay. Straight line.
Because a photon has very little weight and mass.
Right.
But it
has zero mass.
Okay. That's why I'm confused. Okay. So zero mass and
zero mass. So light is would, in the absence of anything else on the trampoline, the light will go in a straight line. The ping pong ball will go in a straight line. Now what I want you to do is to take that bowling ball and place it right in the middle of that trampoline. It will sag down.
Mm-hmm.
It will curve the space. It will curve the trampoline.
Yeah.
Now take that ping pong ball again and roll it right past the bowling ball. It will follow the curve of the space. It will follow the curve of the trampoline, right? It's not being gravitationally attracted to the bowling ball, but the bowling ball has affected the space around it. It has curved the space around it. So a photon traveling the shortest distance through curved space makes a curved line. It curves.
Got it.
Mass affects the space. Mass curves the space around it. And that includes your mass. But the curvature of the space around your body is so small that it's not detectable. So that's what gravity is.
A photon has no mass.
Right.
But somehow space has mass.
No, space has no mass.
How is space then being... What is the mass of the object, the Earth or the black hole?
Mm-hmm.
Upon what is it displaying its force on space? Like what
you're asking is what is space?
I guess so, because in the trampoline in the backyard, when our little grandson, just the other day, this very thing happened. We had these little light balls, little plastic, throw balls. They're so light, you just roll them across the trampoline. And we all
really did
in. We really did it. We throw these little light colored balls into the trampoline. Then Wesley Puck climbs up, gets in the trampoline, and when he's there in the middle, it starts to sag. Then every time you roll a ball, it goes right to him in the middle, right?
Exactly.
So that happens.
It spirals in
all the time. So that's what I was picturing. I get that. I hold that in my brain as the way gravity works. What I'm realizing I don't know though, I know what the fabric of the trampoline is, so I can see how that's being stretched. What is the fabric of space that allows for something of mass? Because if I put a thing of mass, Wesley Puck or a bowling ball, on top of another thing of mass, the trampoline floor, those two, they're affecting each other. But in this space being affected, it doesn't have any mass, but the thing that does have mass, the Earth or the black hole, what is it pulling if it's not? You see where I'm going? Like, is this
And
is this a real wondered question, or is this like, that's on page 412 of the textbook, and you turn to that? And here it is.
No, it's a good question, but it just exposes one of the limits of the analogy, basically.
Okay.
That's all. It's just there's no equivalent mass to space. But what it does point out is that space is not what we see. We think of it as this sort of static background thing that goes on forever in all three dimensions.
Okay.
Right. It has no effect. It's just sort of a stage, right? That all the actors are playing on. That's how we think about space. But it turns out that space is not that way, that it actually can be stretched and twisted and so forth.
But what is it? What? Okay, he just threw his hands up.
It's like the other day when you were like, it seemed like we were talking about particles, like, but what is stuff? What is
it's
like an electron? It's like, there is a science, there is a point at which we're like, we're just dealing with definitions here,
So we know space is.
We know space is, and that it can be, and that it is warped and twisted by mass. Yes, that is affected by mass, and that it affects mass as well. It affects, when the Earth going around. I mean, imagine that bowling ball sitting in the middle of your trampoline, and getting like a baseball or something, and getting it into a perfect orbit, so where it just, there's no friction. Imagine between the ball and the trampoline. You can imagine getting a baseball and throwing it in just the right angle, just the right speed to where it would maintain a circular orbit around the bowling ball. Now, in reality, right, there's air friction, there's friction with the trampoline, and it spirals into the bowling ball. But if you got rid of all the friction, you could get it into a nice, stable orbit. That's what the Earth is doing around the sun. The Earth is simply following the curved space around the sun. It's being affected by the curved space around the sun. That's the way that we picture it.
When you describe space like that, that's a technical difference than when we just talk about what's in outer space or what's in space, right? Like that term space, when we say it's just sort of the area in between, that's not what's meant in this conversation about space being meant. Is that right? Like
I'm talking about the technical kind of, 3 dimensions, X, Y, and Z, the space in this room. It's not just a space out there. It's space as a universal sort of stage that everything is happening on. But the stage is not static. The stage itself is part of the action. That's the point.
Like does a pliable, young, fresh 19 or 20-year-old mind in college just grasp this stuff faster than a rigid old,
Yeah, probably.
dying gray matter, or do people just go along with it?
Well, I don't know. I think I've had some students, whose basic attitude towards this is, is this going to be on the exam?
Yeah, sure.
But then I had the others who are more like you, who sit there and just sort of, get the get this stunned look on their face and kind of stare out at middle distance, and it was like you can see their brain collapsing. that has also happened. So it depends on the student.
Well, it's like all
I don't
the
think
things.
It's an age thing.
It's like all the I think you're probably right. It's like all the things of, I don't know, beauty and goodness that when you really turn your mind to them and start thinking about them, the more you start to understand pieces of it. This would be true of art or music or love or compassion or empathy, whatever, all the things. When you start really spending a little time around them, it really starts to push your mind to ask yourself, what's exactly, how does that work again? And sometimes just having having it actually work just is a salve for all of those worries. I was in New York earlier this week.
What do you mean? Wait, before I want to tell your story, but what do you mean have it work? To have it work as a salve. I like that. I'm trying to figure out what you mean.
So I was in New York, and I was walking over to my hotel, and I really had to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like a mile walk to the hotel. And in New York, unlike some other places, there are no public restrooms. Like you could go into a bar or something else, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, if somebody had just paused, if we didn't have major cities like New York, and someone said, hey, here's what I think we're going to do. We're going to build this city, and there's going to be like 20 million people that are going to live in this 10-mile compressed area. It's going to be skyscrapers. You just describe New York. And then someone says, are there going to be bathrooms? And then someone says, no. Like Starbucks will have one. maybe that little place over there. But no, we're not going to have any public restrooms other than in a couple of parks. We would all say,
unlike in cities in Europe, they have public. Yeah.
Right. We would say, you can't do that. That city is not going to work. There's no way this city is going to work. Like that's just, you have to solve that from the start. No, you don't. It works just fine. If you said to someone, hey, you know what it takes for you to fall in love? Levels of compatibility, somebody close enough in age, somebody that lives nearby you. If you just started doing the statistics of what it takes to meet someone, fall in love, spend your life together, and be happy, you're like, that's never happening.
It's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. Happens all the time. There's something about the cities like that work. People do fall in love. Children do survive. Like all these things make you just say like, well, I know I don't really understand all the machinations that could have come together, but it just works. And it works. Somehow, and it feels like some of this is like, look, the mathematical descriptions that we now know what gravity is, that it bends space time, by the way, one word, which we can talk about later.
Right.
But that it's bending that, and that's what's allowing light and other things to move, or the Earth to orbit. It's not magnetic poles or anything. The fact that the math works and everything just makes people, that's the salve, right? The salve says, okay, yeah, it's okay. No, it actually... And look at all the things we can do because of it. That's proof that it actually works. But when you just sort of come at it, I bet maybe this is what theoretical physicists do all the time, or maybe they've set this all aside. But when you sort of just stop and think, like, yeah, but what is it again? Like, I don't know. You start reverse engineering it, like you do the city.
Yeah, breaking it down. Yeah,
it seems impossible.
That reminds me of the list of requirements to have basically sustained life on a planet. That is a long list, and it is if you looked at it, you thought that would never happen. But it seems to have occurred at least once.
Yes.
I mean, it's a lot more than just having the Earth be a certain size and orbit within a certain distance of the sun. It's a whole lot more than that. Is 15 different things, maybe 17 different things, completely independent things, that seem to have lined up for us here. It's
quite amazing. Hey, George has another comment that I want to throw up here. He says, I realize this isn't related to outer space, but related to the inner space. that when you were discussing gravity. He says, how is terminal velocity limited to 122 miles per hour? So apparently George knows a thing or two about all this. I'm going to put that back in. Why does a 500-pound person have the same terminal velocity that a 100-pound individual have? So I'm guessing this is true whether it's a person or an individual, but why would 500-pound object and a 100-pound object have the same terminal velocity? And if you could, just briefly, what is a terminal velocity and what's that?
Terminal velocity is what I was referring to earlier. The speed required for something to be removed from the pull of gravity altogether.
Got it. So it's terminal in the sense that that's the velocity at which it would terminate.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Pull. No, I'm sorry. That's escape velocity. I was reading that as if he had said escape. No, terminal velocity is different. Terminal velocity is the if you take an object from a tall building and drop it, say a baseball, okay, it will fall and it will speed up for a while, but eventually it'll reach a set constant speed because the force of air friction up on it is equal to the force of gravity pulling it down. When those are equal, the forces are equal, and it won't speed up, and it'll keep moving, but it won't speed up anymore. That's known as terminal velocity.
Okay, the fastest speed that in the Earth's atmosphere something can move toward the Earth. No matter how far away it started, no matter how much it weighs, it's going to hit a certain speed, and that's that?
Yes, right. And it's because of the atmosphere. It's because of the atmospheric resistance.
So when a meteor comes rushing in, that's different? Or the space shuttle comes flying back in before they pull it?
The meteor would probably never... I doubt that it would ever be in the atmosphere long enough to achieve terminal velocity.
Okay.
But if you take if you see a bug, if a bug falls off the wall towards the floor, it immediately reaches terminal velocity. And when it doesn't matter if it falls a foot or if it falls 20 feet, it's going to hit the floor with the same speed because it's so light and it's kind of spread out. So it reaches terminal velocity quickly. But if you drop an arrow straight down, it'll take a whole lot longer for it to reach terminal velocity because it's so aerodynamic. So it depends on the shape of the thing and how much it weighs. And
by terminal velocity there, you don't mean it's going to reach the limit, the 122 miles per hour that George referred to. You're saying it's going to reach, it's going to go as fast as it would ever go no matter how long it was falling.
Yeah. Right. That's right. So...
Oh, wow. This is just blowing my mind.
Yeah. So it depends.
And weight's not the thing.
No, weight's not the thing. It really it's related to weight, but it's also related to the shape of the thing. Because if you take because if you have something that's kind of like a plate, if you drop a plate, it's got a huge cross-sectional area that's feeling resistance, right? So if you drop a plate, if you're holding it sort of parallel to the ground horizontally, it's going to achieve escape velocity. I mean, it's going to achieve terminal velocity very quickly. And it'll be slow. But if you turn it sideways and let it go, it'll go a lot faster before it reaches terminal velocity. And it'll be going a lot faster when it reaches.
Because air, the atmosphere is going to slow it up.
Yeah, slow it up a lot less. If you have the plate parallel to the ground, sort of horizontal, it's going to achieve escape velocity very quickly.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's not aerodynamic that way. If you turn it sideways, it's a lot more aerodynamic. And it's going to go a lot faster before it reaches terminal
I got that.
velocity.
That's really helpful. So to George's question, why is it 122 miles an hour? Why do you know why is that gravitational pull of the Earth like on other planets?
I've never heard that before, but it kind of makes some sense to me that it would be that there would be some limit to it, simply because the atmosphere is only so thick. Right.
Sure.
It's only so thick, and it gets thinner as you go up. So it can only resist so much.
Huh. Wow.
And has a certain density. So maybe there is a limit to the terminal velocity because of the fact that the atmosphere has a limited depth.
Okay.
Huh. Yeah. That must be the answer to that.
That's a good question from George that he knew that.
Yeah. And George, it has to do not just with the weight. The weight is not. It's a combination of weight and shape that determine terminal velocity.
I see. So for some reason, George knows that, and people have determined that, and there is some set relationship to this velocity. Something can fall that's related to the atmosphere of the Earth and the gravitational pull. Do you know, do things going into a black hole, if they got near a black hole, do they go right to the center, and would they like travel?
It depends on their initial trajectory. If you sort of take a baseball and throw it into a black hole, if you throw it right towards the center of it, it'll go straight in.
Okay.
But if you throw it off to the side, it's going to maybe orbit for a while and spiral in. So it depends on how you initially throw it. And if you just release it from rest, it'll be pulled straight into the black hole. If the black hole's rotating, it will not. But if the black hole is not rotating, whole different question. The black hole's not rotating, then the baseball, if you release it, it would fall right straight into it.
So there's rotating black holes and non-rotating black holes.
Pretty much all of them are going to be rotating to some degree, and that complicates things.
And we can see that. We can see.
No, it's just based on the principle that pretty much everything, every star, every planet has some amount of rotation to it, and the closer the smaller it gets, if it falls in on itself, the faster it rotates. Like a ice skater, she has her arms out and then she pulls her arms and legs and she speeds up.
Yeah.
Same thing with a star.
What becomes of a black hole once it compresses, is spinning so fast and is all the way down to the center? What happens?
We don't know. It's hidden, man. We don't know.
We don't know what's going on in there.
We don't know what's going on in there.
Did this release of the where we started, this picture that's been taken, this image that took years of computation to put together, is that the kind of data that we now have that people feel like we're going to start to know more about what's going on in there? Or is we pretty confident
it may have some effect. I mean, there's already been this came out last week. There's already 10 papers published on it or something. So there's all kinds of stuff you can do with it. It may be able to help us sort of get glimpses of what might happen. But I think most of the value of that image is going to be about the black hole itself, the outside of it, and what happens in the vicinity of a black hole. I think that's where most of the learning is going to come.
Well, this is so cool. Hey, are there certain astrophysicists who study black holes? Is it like the medical profession where someone's like has a specialty in black holes?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Really?
Astronomy is broken down into 100 subfields. Yeah.
Really?
And and general relativity. Basically, people who study general relativity are going to be doing black holes. Other things too, but there are definitely black hole. I mean, there are such things as black hole theorists who go to work, do their black hole science, then come home and have a drink and go to bed. Yeah, they spend their days thinking about black holes. Their lives, their professional lives, working on this. Absolutely.
Do you know any of those people? Do you make acquaintance?
No, I don't know any of them personally. But I'm sure
who tends to employ someone who has a black hole specialty? Like where?
Big universities, Caltech,
really?
MIT, big tech schools like that, big science, Stanford, big universities.
So somewhere in that world, they believe that knowing more about this matters.
That's right.
See that little?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, that was good. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the truth is, we're never going to know what we need to know. We do not know what we're going to need to know. That's right.
That's a great line. We don't know what we're going to need to know.
We cannot, in principle, know what it is we are eventually going to need to know. Right.
Wow, Sensei, that was a good one. That's a good place. That's a good place to. That's a good place to finish. Hey, thanks all, and especially those of you that tolerated us during the audio glitch. And I'm seeing that at least John Moyer is having trouble with some other technical things over on the Christian Left page. I don't know what that's about. We don't control that side. If anyone wonders what it was that happened on the with the sound in my Rodecaster Pro, which is the soundboardy thing that I have here, there's a setting that is the Rodecaster Pro stereo and the Rodecaster Pro multi-channel, and for some reason mine was clicked to multi-channel, which then was sending Paul's audio back into the very same machine that was sending it out. So he set it, it heard it, and then set it in again, and it got in its own little
feedback loop. Yep.
So anyway, if you wanted to know what was going on, that was going on, and
glad you cracked it.
Sorry you all had to tolerate it, and if you, I don't know, maybe we'll edit this video and won't even, when we repost this, won't even put that part back up. But Paul, thank you. Thanks for the tutorial and the class today. And
sure.
Do you think the UFOs live in the black hole? Is there a chance of that? Is there a chance that there's a whole colony of these in the black hole, and that's why we don't know them?
That is certainly very plausible, Doug. And the main question I would have for them is how they get out, because that would be some serious technology right there.
Yeah, maybe it's just a force of will. Maybe maybe that's it.
They're like roach motels, check in, you don't check out.
Roach
one
motels.
Way.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Hey, all. Thanks for sticking with us. If you're watching this on any of those Facebook channels, be sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to keep up on this, because we're going to be moving all of this over to YouTube. Some technical reasons and some other just it makes much more sense to have all of us, have all of you in your many places, all in one places. So anyway, be sure that you're subscribed, because somewhere in June that the transition will be complete. And we will be over on YouTube. All right, everybody. So we will have a good Thursday, and we'll talk to you all soon.
See ya.